"It's the only way, my son. Forgive your mother." The widow's choked cry echoed through the dense forest as she released the small, feverish body already marked by the treacherous snake bite. Burning tears streamed down her face, but despair was greater than pain, and she ran, leaving behind her son and all hope. Little did she know that beneath the dark foliage, a pair of amber eyes watched, and what the jaguar would do next would forever change that child's destiny. The pair of amber eyes, which had previously observed from a distance, now approached with an almost reverent slowness. The jaguar, a magnificent specimen with its golden coat dappled with dark rosettes, moved without a sound, its wide, soft paws barely touching the damp forest floor. There was no aggression in its demeanor, only a profound curiosity and a stillness that seemed to emanate from the very essence of the wilderness. It stopped a few steps from the small, inert body, tilted its majestic head, and sniffed the air. The smell of fever and fear, mixed with the sweet, metallic aroma of venom, was unmistakable. The human cub was weak, its chest rising and falling in shallow, irregular breaths. The jaguar, silent and ancient guardian of those lands, felt a strange pang, a primordial instinct that went beyond hunting or territoriality. It was something akin to compassion, a recognition of life's fragility. With a smooth, calculated movement, the jaguar lay down beside the boy, its imposing body forming a natural barrier against the cold night wind. The warmth of its dense fur began to radiate, enveloping the child like an improvised blanket, its eyes fixed on the surrounding darkness, alert to any approaching threat. The child, in his feverish stupor, perhaps felt the warm, protective presence, for an almost inaudible moan escaped his lips, and his tiny body seemed to relax slightly. The jaguar remained motionless, a living statue of vigilance, its warm, moist breath mingling with the heavy forest air. It did not move to hunt, nor roar to intimidate. It simply stayed there, an unexpected sentinel, defying the logic of wild survival with an act of pure instinctive protection. As the night wore on, a distant sound began to break the silence of the forest, male voices and the rustling of leaves under human footsteps. A group of hunters, venturing into that part of the forest in search of tracks, noticed something unusual. It was not the sound of prey, nor the alarm of other animals. It was a low, continuous growl, almost a murmur, that seemed to emanate from a fixed point. Curious and cautious, they approached, lanterns in hand, illuminating the path through the dense vegetation. The growl, though soft, possessed an authority that made them stop. When the light from one of the lanterns finally pierced the darkness and revealed the scene, the men were petrified. There lay the majestic jaguar, and beside it, a small figure. The group's leader, an experienced and kind-hearted man named Elias, was the first to recover from the shock. He raised his lantern higher, and the image became clear. A child, a small boy, pale and visibly ill, nestled against the flank of the great feline. The jaguar, sensing the human presence, raised its head, its amber eyes reflecting the light, but made no move to attack. It merely watched, as if presenting its small charge. Elias, with a lump in his throat, realized the gravity of the boy's situation and the animal's surprising compassion. With slow gestures and whispered words, he signaled to his companions. It was not a hunt. It was a rescue, a miracle orchestrated by nature itself. The jaguar, as if having fulfilled its mission, rose with dignity and, without a sound, disappeared into the forest shadows, leaving behind the boy and a mystery of wild altruism. Elias and his companions, still stunned by the scene they had witnessed, moved with an almost religious reverence. The silence the jaguar left behind was filled only by the rustling of leaves under their feet and the boy's heavy breathing. Elias, with the experience of one who had lived his entire life in the forest, knelt beside the child. The small body was warm, feverish, and the snake bite, swollen and purplish, was an alarming sign. His lips were dry and cracked, and a faint moan escaped, breaking the men's hearts. "We need to take him, now," Elias said, his voice deep and determined. His eyes met those of the other hunters, who nodded without hesitation. The hunt was forgotten. A life needed to be saved. With the delicacy of one handling a fragile treasure, Elias lifted the boy. The light weight in his arms emphasized the child's vulnerability. He wrapped him in his own leather jacket, seeking to offer some comfort and warmth. The other men quickly organized themselves, one clearing a path with a machete, another illuminating the improvised trail with a lantern, and the third carrying the few belongings they had for the journey back. The forest, which had once seemed an impenetrable labyrinth, was now an urgent path to be traversed. There was no time to lose. Every step was a silent prayer, a race against the spreading venom and the fever consuming the small life. As the group of hunters advanced with their precious burden, the widow, whose name was Anna, continued her desperate flight. Every leaf that crunched under her feet, every branch that snapped, seemed to whisper her son's name, echoing the guilt that tore at her. She ran aimlessly, her hair tangled, her clothes torn, her face stained with dirt and dried tears. The image of the small, inert body, the pale skin and the dark bite, was etched in her mind, an endless torment. She tried to push the thought away, but it returned with overwhelming force, like the claws of an invisible predator. "I abandoned him. I abandoned him," she murmured, her words lost in the howl of the night wind. With each step, a new question arose. How could I do this? What kind of mother am I? The pain of previous loss, the misery that suffocated her, all seemed a weak justification in the face of the monstrosity of her act. She felt like a monster, unworthy of any compassion. The despair that had driven her to flee now transformed into a corrosive regret, a different venom, but equally lethal to her soul. She stumbled and fell, her hands scratched by the earth. She staggered to her feet, driven no longer by the fear of suffering, but by an urgent need to escape herself. The forest, which had once been her refuge, was now a mirror of her tormented soul, reflecting the darkness of her decision. Far away, the hunters, led by Elias, finally spotted the first lights of a small clearing, where a few rustic cabins indicated the presence of other forest dwellers. Hope rekindled in their hearts. The boy, in his arms, was still breathing, though weakly. Elias quickened his pace, feeling the warmth of the child's body, a warmth that was both from the fever and from the life that stubbornly clung to existence. The jaguar, the silent guardian, had done its part. Now, it was the human's turn. The widow, oblivious to all this, continued her journey of torment, unaware that destiny, or perhaps the forest itself, was weaving a new chance for her and for the son she believed she had lost forever. Anna, with aching feet and a soul in tatters, tripped over a protruding root and fell to her knees. Exhaustion was a physical weight, but guilt, a crushing burden. The words of forgiveness she had murmured to her son before fleeing now sounded like cruel mockery. Forgive your mother. How could he forgive her? What kind of mother abandoned her own child to death in the wild immensity? She clenched her fists in the damp earth, feeling the cold of the night penetrate her bones. The forest, once a refuge, now seemed to watch her with accusing eyes. Each shadow a reminder of her act. She could no longer run, but she also couldn't stop. To go back was unbearable, for it would mean confronting the end of her little one. As Anna struggled in her private hell, Elias and his companions arrived at the small clearing. The flickering lights of the rustic cabins were a beacon of hope. Seeing the group approach with a burden in their arms, the few awakened residents came out of their homes, curious and concerned. An elderly woman with white hair and a welcoming gaze, known to all as Grandma Ilara, hurried towards them. Her eyes, accustomed to deciphering the signs of nature and the human body, identified the boy's feverish pallor and the purple bite on his leg. "For heaven's sake, what happened?" she exclaimed, her voice choked with urgency. Elias, his voice hoarse from the run and emotion, quickly explained the miracle of the jaguar and the child's critical condition. Grandma Ilara, without losing a second, gestured towards her cabin. The interior was simple but organized, exuding the smell of dried herbs and smoke. With the help of other women who joined them, she laid the boy on a soft mat. Her experienced fingers examined the bite, and her face contorted into an expression of seriousness. "It's Jararaca viper venom. Strong, but there's still time." Her voice, though grave, carried a thread of hope that calmed the men's anxious hearts. Immediately, Grandma Ilara began to work. She asked for hot water, clean cloths, and a paste of clay and herbs she kept in a clay pot. While one of the women heated water over the fire, Grandma Ilara crushed fresh leaves with a pestle, mixing them with a sticky resin. With firm and delicate movements, she cleaned the wound and applied the cool paste over the bite, covering it with a clean cloth. "This will draw out the venom and relieve the pain," she explained, her eyes fixed on the boy's pale face. Another woman brought an infusion of bitter herbs, which Grandma Ilara made the boy drink in small sips with a wooden spoon. Every gesture was laden with care and the wisdom of years living in harmony with the forest. The men, including Elias, watched in silence, feeling helpless but grateful for the old healer's promptness and knowledge. The boy coughed weakly, and a faint blush colored his cheeks, a tenuous sign that life still struggled within him. Grandma Ilara held the boy's small hand, transmitting warmth and a silent strength. "He's a fighter," she murmured, more to herself than to the others. The night turned into a vigil, with the women of the clearing taking turns to monitor the fever and apply compresses, while the men kept the fire burning and hope alive. Far away, Anna found precarious shelter under the canopy of an ancient tree. The cold of dawn enveloped her, but it was the emptiness in her chest that froze her from within. She huddled, hugging her knees to her body, trying in vain to ward off the images that haunted her. Guilt was a slow poison, corroding her from within, more cruel than the snakebite. She had no jaguar to protect her, no Grandma Ilara to heal her, only darkness and the echo of her own despair. She closed her eyes, wishing the night would never end, for dawn would bring the brutal reality of her decision. The forest, with its secrets and miracles, continued to weave her son's destiny, while Anna remained trapped in the web of her own pain. The rising sun crept through the crack in Grandma Ilara's cabin, painting the earthen floor with a soft golden glow. The long night vigil began to give way to a more palpable hope. The boy, though still pale, seemed less feverish, his breaths more regular. Grandma Ilara, who had dozed off sitting beside the mat, awoke with a faint moan from the child. Her experienced eyes examined the small face. The swelling of the bite had diminished. The purplish color was fading, an encouraging sign. Carefully, she removed the old compress and applied a new mixture of fresh herbs, her wrinkled hands working with maternal delicacy. Elias and the other hunters, who had slept in a corner, watched with anxiety. Grandma Ilara offered the herbal infusion again. This time, the boy swallowed with less difficulty, a small sign of returning strength. His eyes opened for a brief instant, fixing on the old woman's kind face, before closing again into a more peaceful and restorative sleep. A collective sigh of relief escaped the men. "He will live," Grandma Ilara murmured, her voice laden with silent gratitude. The news spread quickly among the clearing's residents, bringing palpable relief. The forest, which seemed to have taken a life, now offered a miracle, and the community rallied around the small life that struggled to remain. Meanwhile, miles away, Anna opened her eyes to a grey and cold dawn. Her body ached, but the physical pain was insignificant compared to the icy emptiness in her chest. The image of her son, the dark bite, the desperate flight. Everything returned with the brutal clarity of daylight. She sat up, hugging her knees, feeling small and insignificant before the immensity of the forest. Regret was an unbearable weight, and tears, which had dried, began to flow again, hot and bitter. She lacked the courage to return, but the idea of moving forward without knowing her son's fate was equally torturous. "I should have stayed," she whispered to the wind, her voice hoarse. "I should have stayed and died with him." Guilt corroded her, transforming her despair into an even deeper agony. She remembered the small details, his gap-toothed smile, his strong hug, the sparkle in his eyes. Every memory was a stab. She had fled suffering, but had found a much worse suffering, that of conscience, a primordial instinct. The last vestige of her motherhood began to whisper in her heart, "What if? What if he was still alive?" The question was a dangerous ray of light, a hope she dared not embrace, but which refused to disappear. In the clearing, Elias, feeling more at ease with the boy's improvement, decided it was time to spread the news. Someone in the forest might know of a woman who had lost a child, or perhaps the mother was nearby. He sent one of the hunters, an agile young man, to the main trail with instructions to speak to any traveler or resident he met about the rescued boy. "Tell them a miracle happened," Elias instructed, "and that a life was saved by the kindness of nature and Grandma Ilara." The hope was that the news, like a messenger bird, would find its way to the mother who, out of despair, had lost herself. Anna, still prostrate under the tree, heard a distant rustling, more distinct now. It was not an animal, but human footsteps approaching. Her heart pounded. Fear? Hope? She didn't know. But something within her stirred, a force that seemed to awaken. The idea that someone might be looking, that perhaps there was a chance, however small, that her son was not. Lost forever was a flame igniting in her chest. She staggered to her feet, her eyes scanning the dense vegetation with new urgency. The forest, which had once been a labyrinth of guilt, now seemed like a path. She needed to know. She needed to face it. With a determination she hadn't felt in days, she began to walk, no longer fleeing, but seeking an uncertain destiny. Driven by a faint spark of hope, Anna, her heart pounding erratically in her chest, moved forward, each step a battle against fear and exhaustion. The spark of hope that had ignited was fragile, almost painful to carry, for it brought with it the terrible possibility that if her son were alive, she would have to face the magnitude of her abandonment. Her eyes, previously fixed on the ground, now lifted, searching for any sign, any movement in the dense foliage. She didn't know what or whom she was looking for, but the need to know was stronger than the guilt that dragged her into the abyss. Her legs trembled, but she continued, driven by a force she didn't recognize. It was the maternal instinct, dormant from despair, that was beginning to awaken, timid and hesitant. Meanwhile, the young hunter, Tiago, ran along the trail. His steps were light and swift, driven by the urgency of his mission. He knew that every minute counted, not only for the child, but for the mother who might be suffering somewhere. Tiago was known for his agility and his gentle heart. He encountered small groups of fruit gatherers, woodcutters, and even other hunters, and to each he told the story. The jaguar, the boy, Elias's rescue, and Grandma Ilara's wisdom. People listened, shocked and amazed, and the news, like an echo in the forest, began to spread. "A miracle," they repeated, "a true miracle." Anna heard voices again, closer this time. They were men's voices, but they didn't sound threatening. She hid behind a thick trunk, her heart in her throat, her fingers gripping the rough bark of the tree. She could distinguish fragments of conversation. A boy, snakebite, a jaguar. Yes, a jaguar protected him. Grandma Ilara is taking care of him. He's alive. The word struck Anna like lightning. Alive. Her son was alive. The forest spun around her. She brought her trembling hands to her mouth, trying to stifle a cry of disbelief and relief. It was too much to process. The image of her dying son clashed with the idea that he could be breathing, struggling, living. An overwhelming wave of emotions swept over her. Joy, followed by an even deeper guilt. He was alive, but she had abandoned him. How could she face him? How could she face them, the faces of Grandma Ilara, Elias, everyone who had helped? They would know. They would know of her cowardice, of her unforgivable act. The fear of being judged, of being seen as a monster, was almost as paralyzing as her initial despair. But the flame of hope, now fueled by certainty, burned more intensely. She needed to see him. She needed to be sure. She needed to ask for forgiveness. Her eyes filled with tears. But this time, they were different tears, mixing regret and courage. In the clearing, the little one was in a deeper, more peaceful sleep. Grandma Ilara, with a tired but serene smile, watched him, her eyes fixed on the boy's pale face. The fever had subsided considerably, and the swelling of the bite was almost imperceptible. Elias, beside her, felt a light heart. "He's a strong boy," Grandma Ilara said, gently stroking the child's forehead. The jaguar knew. The community gathered around the cabin, bringing food and words of support. A web of solidarity forming around that rescued life, a testament to the forest's miracle. Anna emerged from her hiding place, her body still trembling, but with a new resolve in her eyes. The shame was immense, but her love for her son was even greater. She could no longer flee, she could not hide. She had to go to him, no matter the cost. She had to face the truth, face herself. It was a journey of redemption, a path paved with tears and regret, but also with the purest and most desperate hope. She began to walk, this time not away, but towards the clearing, towards her son, towards an uncertain future, but one that, for the first time, seemed possible. As she approached the edge of the clearing, the smell of wood smoke and the murmur of human voices became clearer. Anna could see the flickering lights of the cabins through the foliage. Her heart pounded so hard it felt like it would leap from her chest. She hesitated, her foot suspended in the air, the fear of being seen and judged almost paralyzing her again. It was then that, from the dense shadows of a tangle of vines to her right, a subtle movement caught her attention. A majestic figure emerged, its amber eyes glowing in the pre-dawn gloom. It was the jaguar, the same one that had protected her son. It moved with silent grace, stopping a few meters from Anna, its eyes fixed on the widows, not with aggression, but with an intensity that seemed to see through her soul. The jaguar took a slow step, then another, as if inviting her to follow. Anna felt a shiver run down her spine, not of fear, but of profound reverence. It was as if the guardian of the forest was there to guide her, to give her the courage she lacked. The jaguar turned its head slightly towards the clearing and emitted a low growl, almost an invitation. Anna understood. There was nowhere left to run, nowhere to hide. Nature, in its wisdom, was giving her the final push. She took a deep breath, feeling the cold morning air fill her lungs, and took the first step towards the clearing, following the jaguar's gaze. Anna took a deep breath, feeling the cold morning air, and took the first step towards the clearing, following the jaguar. Each movement was a silent confession, a painful acknowledgement of her failure, but also a courage she didn't know she possessed. The jaguar, its spotted coat blending into the shadows, remained ahead, a silent and powerful guide. Its light steps barely stirred the leaves, and Anna, her body heavy with exhaustion and guilt, struggled onward. The human murmur, previously distant, now grew clearer. She distinguished soft voices, children's laughter, the crackling of the campfire. Life in the clearing pulsed, a stark contrast to the icy emptiness that consumed her. The jaguar stopped abruptly, turning its head to Anna. Its deep, wise eyes seemed to encourage her, a silent force urging her on. Anna felt a lump in her throat, tears burning. The jaguar, an unexpected protector, was giving her a chance at redemption. With her heart pounding, Anna emerged from the dense vegetation, her eyes sweeping the clearing. Rustic cabins, the smell of smoke and coffee, people gathered, everything seemed unreal. Her eyes were drawn to Grandma Ilara's cabin, from which soft light and a murmur emanated. Her son was there. She saw Elias standing near the entrance, talking to Grandma Ilara, who looked tired but relieved. Other women peeked through the door, their faces marked by concern and gratitude. Anna felt Elias's gaze fix on her. He recognized her. A shock ran through her body, her blood ran cold. Shame hit her hard, making her stumble. Elias, with a slow gesture, pointed at her. Conversation ceased. All eyes turned to Anna, standing at the edge of the clearing, emaciated and disheveled, her eyes red. The silence was deafening, broken only by the wind. Anna felt naked, exposed. Every fear materialized in the curious and perhaps accusing glances. Grandma Ilara, with her ancestral wisdom, was the first to move. Her eyes, which had seen suffering and hope, rested on Anna with an intensity that unveiled her soul. There was no anger, only deep understanding. She made a gesture with her hand, a silent invitation for Anna to approach, for redemption, for forgiveness. Anna took a step, then another, her legs heavy as lead. The jaguar, invisible in the shadows, emitted a low growl, almost a whisper, encouraging her. With each step, the image of her son, alive and safe, superseded the abandonment. Maternal love, which she believed she had lost, resurfaced with overwhelming force, mingling with guilt. She reached the cabin, her eyes fixed on the open door. Inside, on a mat, her small son slept, pale face, soft breathing, tiny hands. He was alive. An uncontrollable sob escaped, and she fell to her knees at the entrance, tears streaming. Grandma Ilara knelt beside her, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. Elias watched in silence, his face a mixture of sadness and compassion. Anna couldn't speak, only cry, the tears washing away the infinite guilt that, before the miracle, was beginning to find healing. She extended her trembling hand, wanting to touch the small face, but hesitating, feeling unworthy. She extended her trembling hand, wanting to touch the small face, but hesitating, feeling unworthy. Guilt was an invisible wall, preventing her from reaching the child she had abandoned. Her fingers hovered in the air, centimeters from her son's soft skin, as if she feared her touch might contaminate the purity of that miracle. Grandma Ilara, sensing Anna's anguish, gently squeezed her shoulder. "Touch him, my daughter," the old woman whispered, her voice hoarse with wisdom and compassion. "He needs his mother's warmth." Grandma Ilara's words, laden with a permission Anna desperately sought, were like a balm. Slowly, with a tremor that came from her soul, Anna moved her hand. Her fingers brushed the boy's forehead. It was a light, hesitant, almost imperceptible touch, but for Anna, it was as if an electric current coursed through her body. The warmth of her son's skin, the softness of his hair, the gentle breath that made his chest rise and fall. Everything was real. He was alive. She had abandoned him, but he was alive. A new cry, deeper and more liberating, erupted from Anna. It was no longer the cry of despair and paralyzing guilt, but the cry of relief, gratitude, and a pain that was beginning to transform into hope. She leaned over her son, her shoulders trembling, tears falling onto the mat. Elias, who had been observing the scene with thoughtful seriousness, stepped forward. His voice was calm but firm. "The forest has its ways, Anna, and life its second chances." The other residents of the clearing, who had previously maintained a respectful distance, now approached. Their faces showed no judgment, but a mixture of curiosity, empathy, and a silent understanding of human suffering. They knew the harshness of the forest, the way life could crush a spirit. They saw in Anna not a monster, but a broken woman who had found a way back. One of the older women, with grey hair and kind eyes, placed a bowl of warm broth beside Anna. She said not a word, but the gesture spoke volumes. An invitation to nourishment, restoration, acceptance. Anna felt the weight of all those gazes, but strangely, it was no longer a weight of condemnation. It was the weight of solidarity, of the human presence she had rejected in her despair. She raised her head, her eyes swollen and red, but with a new light. She looked at Grandma Ilara, then at Elias, and then at the faces of the community. An almost imperceptible nod, a silent plea for forgiveness and acceptance, escaped her heart. Grandma Ilara smiled, a smile that illuminated her wrinkled face. "The important thing is that you came back, Anna, and that he is here, safe." She extended her hand and helped Anna sit more comfortably beside her son. Anna, her hand still resting on the boy's forehead, felt a wave of warmth spread through her body. It was the warmth of maternal love, which she thought she had lost forever. She remembered the jaguar, that silent and powerful presence that had guided her there, the wild guardian who, somehow, had understood her pain and offered her a path. The forest, which had once been the stage of her greatest mistake, now revealed itself as the source of her redemption. She promised herself, in a silent and solemn oath, that she would never, ever abandon her son again, that every fiber of her being would be dedicated to protecting him, loving him, making up for lost time. She knew the journey would be long, that guilt would not disappear overnight, but for the first time in a long time, Anna felt she had a purpose. She had a second chance, a precious gift granted by nature and the kindness of those strangers. The boy stirred, a faint sigh, his eyes opened, sleepy and fixed on his mother's face. A glimmer of recognition, still faint but undeniable, appeared in his eyes. Anna felt her heart explode in her chest. It was a new beginning. It was a new beginning. The boy, his eyes still heavy with sleep, fixed his gaze on his mother's face. A faint but undeniable glimmer of recognition lit up his small pupils. A soft sigh escaped his lips, and a tenuous, almost imperceptible smile touched his pale face. Anna felt her heart explode in her chest, an overwhelming mix of love, relief, and a sharp pang of regret. She could no longer hesitate. With hands still trembling, but now driven by an unwavering force, she leaned in and embraced her son. It was a delicate hug, careful not to hurt his convalescing body, but laden with all the emotion she had repressed. Tears flowed freely, wetting the boy's fine hair. He, in turn, raised a fragile little hand and placed it on Anna's shoulder, a simple gesture worth more than 1,000 words. Grandma Ilara watched the scene with teary eyes, a smile of pure satisfaction on her wrinkled lips. Elias, beside her, nodded slowly, his serious expression softened by deep compassion. The community, previously silent, now murmured in low tones, not of gossip or judgment, but of genuine empathy. They understood the fragility of life, the strength of despair, and the beauty of a second chance. The woman who had brought the warm broth now approached again, placing the bowl closer to Anna, a silent invitation for her to eat and regain her strength. "He recognized you, Anna," Grandma Ilara whispered, her voice soft as a balm. "A mother's love is a flame that never extinguishes, even in the deepest darkness." Anna raised her head, her eyes red and swollen, but now with a light of hope that hadn't been seen in days. She looked at Grandma Ilara, then at Elias, and finally at the gentle faces of the community. I don't deserve it," she began, her voice choked, but Elias interrupted her with a firm gesture. "No one is here to judge, Anna. We are here to help. The forest teaches us that life always finds a way and that compassion is the greatest of all forces." Anna held her son tightly in her arms, feeling the warmth of his small body against hers. Guilt was still there, a persistent shadow, but it was no longer paralyzing. Love, gratitude, and the silent promise of redemption propelled her. She knew she would have to work hard to rebuild trust, to heal the wounds she herself had caused, but looking at her son's serene face, she felt renewed strength. The jaguar, the silent guardian, had shown her the way back. The community had offered her a safe harbor, and her son, with that small smile of recognition, had given her a reason to fight. "I promise," she whispered, not just to the boy, but to herself, to Grandma Ilara, to Elias, to the forest, and to the jaguar that had guided her. "I promise I will never abandon you again. I will do everything to be the mother you deserve." It was a solemn oath, born of pain and redemption. She knew the path ahead would be long and full of challenges, but for the first time in a long time, Anna felt she was not alone. She had a second chance, a precious gift that the forest and its wild protector had granted her, and she was determined to honor it. The boy snuggled closer, and Anna felt a peace she had not known in a long time. Anna felt the warmth of her son's small body nestled against hers, a long unknown peace, a balm for her wounded soul. The scent of earth and forest emanating from him was a reminder of the life she had almost lost. Her fingers caressed the boy's fine hair, feeling its soft texture, and a deep sigh escaped her. He slept now, a tranquil and restorative sleep, and Anna promised herself that every beat of her heart would be dedicated to protecting him and loving him unconditionally. Grandma Ilara, with a tender gaze, watched the scene. She knew that the wound in Anna's heart was deep, but the seed of redemption had been planted. "He will recover, my daughter," the old woman said, her voice a soft murmur. "A child's body has a strength that surprises us." Elias, standing at the door, watched the sky lighten, feeling the weight of the night dissipate. He thought of the jaguar, the majestic guardian that had woven the invisible thread of destiny, uniting lives in unexpected and beautiful ways. The complex forest was a mirror of human life, full of mysteries and miracles. The following days were of delicate reconstruction. The boy, whose name was Lucas, began to show signs of improvement. The fever subsided, the swelling diminished, and his eyes, once dull, regained their childlike sparkle. Anna did not leave his side. She fed him the broth the community women brought, changed his compresses, sang long-forgotten lullabies. Every gesture was a silent plea for forgiveness, an attempt to undo the abandonment. Her eyes, once filled with despair, now carried an iron determination mixed with the sadness of what had happened. The community, wise and silent, offered support without judgment. The women brought herbs for Grandma Ilara to prepare teas. The men helped repair Anna's neglected cabin. No one openly spoke about what Anna had done, but the silence was eloquent. It was a space for healing and the opportunity to start anew. Anna felt the kindness in every glance, in every offer of help, and this made her feel even more unworthy, but also deeply grateful. She knew that the path to forgiveness, both hers and others, would be long. One afternoon, with Lucas sleeping, Anna sat at the cabin entrance, observing the forest. The jaguar had not been seen again, but its presence was still felt, an invisible force that had changed everything. Anna closed her eyes, reliving the moment the jaguar had guided her to the clearing. It was as if the animal had understood the depth of her pain and the need for her redemption. She felt that the forest, once terror and despair, was now a sanctuary of second chances. Lucas woke and called for Mama in a weak voice. Anna rushed to him, her heart squeezed with love. He extended his arms, and Anna hugged him tightly, feeling her son's fragility and resilience. In that embrace, she found the strength to face tomorrow. Overcoming would not be easy, but with Lucas's love and the community's support, she knew she could rebuild her life brick by brick and with a promise. She looked at the forest, at the horizon, and a new hope blossomed in her chest. A new hope blossomed in Anna's chest, but it was not a naive or fleeting hope. It was a seed planted in the soil of suffering and watered with tears of regret, which now began to sprout with the unwavering strength of determination. The days transformed into a routine of care, devotion, and unconditional love. Lucas, with each dawn, showed visible and surprising improvement. His eyes, once clouded by fever and venom, now shone with the curiosity and vivacity typical of a healthy child. He laughed, a crystalline sound Anna thought she would never hear again, and his small arms reached out to her with a trust that simultaneously tore and healed his mother's heart. Anna did not leave her son's side for an instant. She slept nestled on the mat, feeling little Lucas's soft breath, and woke with the first ray of sun to prepare his food, always with Grandma Ilara's wise help and guidance. The old healer watched Anna with a gaze that saw beyond the visible, a gaze of one who understood the depths of the human soul and the complexity of forgiveness. "A mother's love is the greatest of medicines, my daughter," Grandma Ilara said one day, her voice gentle as a balm. As Anna changed Lucas's compresses, Anna merely nodded, silent tears streaming down her emaciated cheeks. She felt the truth of those words in every fiber of her being, in every painful and now hopeful beat of her heart. Guilt, though still present as a deep scar, no longer consumed her. It had transformed into a motor, a driving force to be the mother Lucas deserved, to make up for lost time and the act of despair. She told stories of the forest, sang lullabies her own mother had taught her long ago, and every touch, every word was a silent plea for forgiveness, a renewed oath of love and protection. Lucas, in his childlike innocence, responded with affection and total dependence, unaware of the depth of the abyss from which his mother had returned for him. The community, once a group of silent observers, now welcomed her more explicitly and warmly. The women brought not only herbs for Grandma Ilara, but also offered Anna a plate of warm food, a genuine smile, a word of encouragement. The men, led by Elias with his quiet strength, helped repair Anna's cabin, which had been in ruins and neglected, transforming it into a safe and welcoming home for mother and son. Elias, in particular, kept a watchful eye on Anna, a mixture of respect for her struggle and a silent reminder of what the forest had taught them, all about the resilience of the human spirit. One afternoon, while Lucas slept deeply after a day of light play in the clearing, Anna sat at the cabin door, observing the spectacle of nature. The sun was setting, painting the sky with vibrant shades of orange, purple, and gold. It was then that she saw it again. The jaguar, majestic and silent as a shadow, emerged from the edge of the forest, stopping at a respectful distance, its amber eyes, deep and wise, fixed on Anna's, and a profound and inexplicable connection was established between the two. There was no threat, only an imposing presence, a mutual recognition. Anna felt a shiver run down her spine, but not of fear. It was a reverence, a gratitude that overflowed from her soul. The jaguar, the silent guardian of the forest, had been the instrument of her redemption, the link between her darkness and the light of hope. It was as if nature, in its primordial and infinite wisdom, was there to witness her complete transformation. The jaguar took a step forward, then another, and Anna, driven by a force she didn't know where it came from, stood up and took a step towards it, extending a hand in a gesture of pure gratitude. "Thank you," Anna whispered, her voice choked with emotion, tears streaming freely down her face, wetting the earthen floor. "Thank you for saving him, for giving me a second chance to be a mother." The jaguar tilted its head slightly, as if understanding every unspoken word, and then, with the same silent grace with which it appeared, it turned and disappeared into the dense shadows of the forest, leaving behind only the memory of its powerful presence. In that moment, Anna felt the last vestige of her despair detach from her. Dissolving into the afternoon air, guilt no longer defined her. She was a mother, and she was loved, not only by her son, but by a community that had embraced her, and by a forest that had taught her the greatest of lessons, that life always offers a new beginning. She turned, her heart light and full of new strength, and entered the cabin. Lucas was awake, smiling at her. Ina hugged him with all the strength she had, promising herself and the universe that she would never, ever abandon him again. The climax was not a resounding event, but the stillness of a heart at peace, the promise of a future. The profound stillness, like the one Anna felt, was not an end, but a new beginning. It was the solid foundation upon which she would begin to rebuild her life, brick by brick, with the promise of a future that, though uncertain, was now filled with hope. The following days unfolded into a tapestry of small victories and gestures of affection. Lucas, with the innate resilience of children, blossomed with each dawn. His smile widened, his steps gained firmness, and the clearing, once the scene of his near tragedy, became the garden of his new discoveries. He ran among the trees, chasing butterflies, and his laughter echoed, a sound Anna cherished as the most precious of treasures. Anna, in turn, embraced her new reality with fervent dedication. She was not just the mother who cared, but the woman who would reintegrate. She helped Grandma Ilara harvest herbs, learning about the healing properties of the forest that had once frightened her. Her hands, once trembling with despair, now worked with purpose, grinding roots, preparing teas. She participated in communal meals, exchanging stories and laughter with the other women, whose gazes, once curious, were now of respect and camaraderie. The silence that had surrounded her in her pain had been replaced by the warmth of human connection. Guilt, though never forgotten, had transformed. From a crushing burden, it had become a painful but necessary reminder that propelled her to be better. She saw in every smile from Lucas, in every tight hug, a chance for redemption. Elias, with his constant presence and gentle gaze, was a silent reminder of the compassion that the forest and its inhabitants could offer. He helped her with small repairs to the cabin, and their conversations, few but significant, spoke of the strength of nature and the human capacity to rise again. One afternoon, while Lucas played happily with other children in the clearing, Anna sat beside Grandma Ilara. "I still feel the weight of what I did," Anna confessed, her voice low, her eyes fixed on her son. Grandma Ilara took her hand, squeezing it gently. "The weight is what reminds us where we came from, my daughter, but love is what shows us where we are going. You chose the path of love." The old healer's words were a balm, confirming what Anna already felt in her heart. The jaguar, though no longer visible, remained an ethereal presence, a symbol of divine intervention and the wisdom of the forest. Anna knew she could never repay what the animal had done, but she could honor its legacy by living a life of gratitude and compassion. She dedicated herself to teaching Lucas about respect for nature, about the interconnectedness of all lives, and about the importance of never giving up, even in the darkest moments. The community, which had initially welcomed her out of compassion, now saw her as an integral part of their web. Inna was no longer the desperate widow, but the strong and resilient mother whose love had been tested and purified. Her story, whispered on campfire nights, became a powerful reminder of the human capacity for overcoming adversity and the unexpected kindness that life could offer. She had found not only her son, but herself, reborn from the ashes of her despair. In a golden twilight, as Lucas slept peacefully in her arms, Anna felt a profound serenity. Her fingers traced the outline of her son's face, and a soft smile, full of gratitude, illuminated her face. The forest now was no longer a place of fear, but a home, a sanctuary that had witnessed her fall and her rise. She took a deep breath, absorbing the smell of damp earth and night flowers, feeling herself part of something greater. The future did not promise ease, but it promised a path trodden with faith, love, and the certainty that she would never be alone again. Anna knew that each new day would be an opportunity to honor the second chance she had been granted, to love Lucas with all her being, and to live in harmony with nature and with the community that had embraced her. It was a silent promise, an oath of eternal love, and a celebration of life that, against all odds, had found its way back to the light. Anna lived this promise with each dawn. The sun's rays, filtering through the cabin's cracks, no longer brought the coldness of despair, but the warmth of a new day, of new opportunities. Lucas, now with his firm steps and contagious laughter, was the personification of that light. He woke with pure enthusiasm, running into his mother's arms, who received him with a tight embrace, feeling his small body vibrate with life. Every meal prepared, story told under the shade of the trees, kiss on his sleeping forehead, was a brick in the reconstruction of a home and an unbreakable love. The forest, once a labyrinth of fears, had become the backdrop of their joys, a silent witness to her redemption. The community observed Anna's transformation with admiration and affection. She was no longer the reclusive and tormented figure. Her hands, once occupied only with survival, now helped Grandma Ilara grind medicinal herbs, weave sturdy baskets, and share the burden of daily tasks. In every exchange of glances with the women of the clearing, Anna saw not judgment, but acceptance, the understanding that life was made of falls and rises. She smiled more, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, once so dull. Elias, during his visits, noticed the lightness in her shoulders, her straighter posture, her voice that had gained a tone of hope. He knew that the forest had taught Anna the profound lesson of human resilience. Lucas, unaware of the depth of his mother's journey, grew strong and healthy. His curious eyes explored every corner of the clearing, and he pointed to colorful butterflies, to birds singing joyful melodies, always seeking Anna's hand to share his discoveries. She taught him the names of plants, respect for animals, the importance of every living being. It was an education of love and connection with nature, a legacy forged in her experience of near loss. The boy, in his childlike purity, had become the beacon that guided Anna back to humanity. Guilt, though never completely erased, had metamorphosed. It was no longer a chain binding her to the past, but a compass guiding her towards the future. It was the constant reminder of the value of life, the fragility of existence, and the transformative power of love. Anna, sitting at the cabin door one late afternoon, watched Lucas play with other children, her heart overflowing with silent gratitude. The jaguar had not reappeared, but its presence was felt in every breeze, in every ray of sun filtering through the treetops. It was the invisible guardian, the master who had orchestrated the miracle. Anna now understood that life was not about erasing mistakes, but learning from them and moving forward with wisdom and compassion. Her story, once a dark secret, had become a silent testament to human redemption. She had found not only her son, but herself, a stronger, more grateful, and infinitely more loving woman. The future, with its challenges and uncertainties, no longer frightened her. She had Lucas, the community, and the wisdom of the forest. And so the days succeeded one another, weaving a new tapestry of life. Anna and Lucas, hand in hand, walked through the clearing, their steps synchronized, their hearts connected by a love that had overcome the abyss. Anna's silent promise, made in profound pain and redemption, was now a vibrant reality, a living testament that even in the greatest darkness, the light of hope and compassion always finds a way to flourish, guiding them towards a tomorrow full of possibilities and lasting peace.